Hello everyone, it's David again. Babylon 5, Season 3, Episode 3, A Day in the Strife. Hope you all are having a good day. We start off with Sheridan meeting with the transport workers over new weapons regulations. And, they've got one of these tough guys in the middle who always has to jump up and have an opinion. And of course, he's always like, "You've got your guns and your bodyguards. All we've got is what we got." Is he's got this? I think it's just a lever that you know, lift up like heavy furniture and stuff to put rollers under it, so you can roller things around. Anyways, Sheridan goes down, and as we all know, he palms the energy cap to the PPG from the guard that he borrowed, and he shoves the PPG in the guy's hand, and he's sitting there, and he takes the ice pick or whatever you want to call it, and he's like, "Well, all I've got is all I've got." And, well, I didn't mean anything by it, because it's always the same idiots who talk tough, and 99 times out of 100, they are absolute full of malarkey, as Joe Biden might say. They have literally no cojones behind them. So, he gets back and sits down and says, "Let's try this tomorrow when cooler heads can prevail." And Ivanova looks at him and says, "That was great. Stupid. That guy could have killed you." And he then informs her that, and she goes, "What's that?" And he was playing with this little object, and he goes, "It's the energy cap to the PPG. I palmed it when I shoved the gun into his pocket." And she's like, ugh, kind of like, you ever had one of those coworkers that just drives your last good nerve sometimes? So anyway, we zip on over, and Jakar's replacement arrives from Narn, and we cue the entrance. We find out that the Narn in question, his name is Nafar. N-A, Mark, F-A-R. Can't remember what those diacritic mark, I think. Anyway, his real actor's name is Stephen Macht, M-A-C-H-T. He was born 1st of May 1942 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and he plays or has played on General Hospital since 2007. And he is what we call or could be, depending on your matter of opinion, is he what we call a quisling? Now, for those of you who don't know, Vidkun, V-I-D-K-U-N, quisling, Q-U-I-S-L-I-N-G, was a Nazi collaborationist who is Norwegian. And he basically, when the Nazis came in with kind of overwhelming firepower compared to what Norway, Norway just wanted to be like Sweden and some of the other Scandinavian countries. They just kind of like, look, we don't want any part of this. Just we're gonna have our little country force that takes care of law and order, and we don't want any problems with anybody. Just leave us out of your politics. Well, unfortunately for Norway, Hitler and the Nazi hierarchy wanted a Swedish as well as Finnish nickel and iron ore, especially. And all of that went through the Norwegian port of Narvik. So that makes Norway, unfortunately, very important for both the Axis and the Allies. So we have Vidkun Quisling. He had what we call a collaborationist government. And it's really interesting how these sorts of things work. It's like, what are these poor Norwegians supposed to do? Are they all supposed to run into the hills and start shooting at the Nazis? That's not realistic for a lot of people. Like me, for instance. I'm at the age, and I've got arthritis and all that good stuff. I'm not going to be running up no 10,000-foot mountain and be shooting at anybody. So unfortunately, I'm a sitting duck. And, what am I supposed to do? If, the Russians invade or whomever, Am I just supposed to sit back, try and run up into the hills, or am I supposed to sit down and make the best of a bad situation? And that's kind of what Nafar is trying to do. He's trying to make the best of a bad situation. Some people have compared him to Benedict Arnold. For those who don't remember or know, Benedict Arnold was, I believe, he was a brigadier general or a lieutenant general, first for the United States during our Revolutionary War against Great Britain. He was outed for war profiteering, and so General Washington was ordered to reprimand him publicly. And so that kind of humiliated Benedict Arnold. He had done a lot for the revolutionary cause, and let's face it, he was not the only one war profiteering. A lot of people in the United States, as well as Great Britain too, were war profiteering. But, be it as it may, Washington felt he couldn't disobey the orders, so he publicly rebuked Benedict Arnold. Well, that incensed Benedict Arnold, whose wife was a British lower aristocracy, I guess. And so, anyways, he ended up actively giving away the plans for the West Point Military Academy, which he was the commandant of. And so Washington knew he had been had because the messenger that was supposed to deliver the plans was caught, and sure enough, only Benedict Arnold could have been responsible for it. So he ended up crossing the line from, not even collaborationist, he was an out-and-out traitor to the United States, or at least that's our, commentary. In fact, there's a particular, we call it eggs benedict, because you have to flip the egg over as you're poaching it, and then you put it on. We call it Canadian bacon. It's called back bacon, as well as an English muffin that's been toasted, and we call those eggs benedict in the United States because you have to turn the egg over. A slap in the face to Benedict Arnold because he turned over his allegiance, sort of like Vidkun Quisling. He turned over his allegiance from Norway to the Nazi collaboration, or the Nazi occupation army, I should say. So, Nafar comes from a very long line of collaborationists. He's trying to, in his eyes, he is trying to, lessen the casualties at home, wait till Narn can become strong again to stand up to the Centauri, things of that nature. The common arguments you hear from a collaborationist. In France, a lot of people ended up collaborating with the Germans against the French and the Vichy government. So, Nafar comes from a long line. If you disagree with me, go ahead and put that down in the comments below. But that's kind of like, if you ask, like Quisling, if you Google that word, all of a sudden a whole bunch of things come up, like meaning, definition. You click on that. You click on the Wikipedia page and you see also, and boom, 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 Benedict Arnold was one of the names that popped up. A lot of other collaborationists. Some have done it for pure profit. Some have started off kind of from a good, they wanted to stop their families from suffering, from starving. Get a little bit of an extra ration in your ration box. That sort of thing. We also have returning Marshall Teague as Talon, who gets to properly thank Sheridan for his help on the Strive ship. We also zip in, and Michael Garibaldi talks to Dr. Franklin about a Brakiri. When he's encountered a Brakiri who was annoying him, he said, "Oh, look, a comet." Now, for those who don't remember, there's only one comet in the Brakiri system, and I think it has like a 200 or 300 year cycle, and when it comes to its closest point to the planet Brakir, that's called the Day of the Dead, and that will become extremely important later on in the 5th season. But anyways, unfortunately, now this poor Bakiri is now thinking that he's in big trouble because Garibaldi said, oh look, a comet, and he ends up now suing Michael Garibaldi for insulting him, his water clan, and something else. We also see, too, Dr. Franklin goes to the bathroom and he returns. Sorry, my cat is just in here and he's terrorizing the whole household. But anyway, sorry, Dr. Franklin feels a whole lot better. Now, if you're like me, I used to be an alcoholic practicing. Haven't drank in about 18 years now. We all know that look. The instant you've gotten your hit or your fix, you're feeling like, nobody's business. You could take on the whole world. And in fact, he invites this attractive young woman to dance with him. So, and of course, this is not lost on Mr. Garibaldi. We end up going in, and Londo ends up humiliating Nafar and then tells him to go contact Jakar. And Veer says, was that really necessary to humiliate this guy? And Londo says, they got out of their place once. We must make sure it doesn't happen again. And Veer says, but they have nothing left. We've bombed the living hell out of them. And he says, that's where you're wrong. He says, they still have their pride, and I'm paraphrasing it, as long as it remains, they will always be a threat. Now, this also is where the spot where an unknown probe is detected, and it asks a series of 600 questions in an attempt to figure out how advanced, the people they come into contact with are. So, as we all remember, Sheridan holds the last question until the probe is sufficiently away. He answers the last question, and the probe self-destructs. And too bad they don't get all the cures for everything. We zip in, and this is also the episode where Londo ends up asking Delenn to allow Veer to become the Centauri ambassador to Mimbar, which she agrees, and Veer, very last episode, or ending of the episode, Veer goes off to Mimbar. We end up, on this whole episode, the local Narns convince Jakar to stay. And let's see here. It also ends, too, with Dr. Franklin goes to have spaghetti over at Michael Garibaldi's. Garibaldi confronts him on stim use, and Dr. Franklin blows up at him. Now, being a recovering alcoholic, I've had a few of those meetings before. One about, I would say, 5 or 6 years ago, one of my best friends, it was just some really outrageous alcoholic behavior. And I finally confronted him in Las Vegas, of all places. And we had kind of a little dust up, and I haven't heard from him since, that's not uncommon. So, we call it 12-stepping someone. It has to do with the 12 steps and 12 traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous. We also end up Dr. Franklin ends up exploding verbally at another doctor from Earthdome, and you can tell things are not kosher with Dr. Franklin. When doctors start blowing up at other doctors, that's usually not a good sign. I've seen only a couple instances where that happens. One doctor ended up losing her license because she ended up killing a patient. And she was notorious for exploding at other doctors at the nurses' station. She would ask them for their opinion, ask them to consult on it, and if their opinion didn't agree with her, what she thought they should be saying, she would literally just blow up at them. And we're like, why are you asking them for their opinion and then blowing up at them when they give you their opinion? But That's why I've always wondered if this doctor didn't have any sort of alcohol or drug problem. But at any rate, next episode is Passing Through Gethsemane, where I believe this is the one where our favorite telepath comes back from Vorlon space. At any rate, I made a separate video, but I also want to take the opportunity to thank everybody for 100 subscribers. I want to try and get to 250 by the end of the year, so we've got 26 more days as of the recording of this commentary. So, as always, like, comment, subscribe, and share, and get out there and help spread the good word of JMS. Hope you all have a good rest of your holiday season.